The prison barge Corthuan never slept. Its engines rumbled like the growl of a beast, vibrating through steel floors and iron walls, drowning the air with the endless hum of captivity. The corridors were narrow, cold, and stinking of rusted metal and stale breath. Commander Elias Kael, though no one here called him that, was dragged through those corridors by 2 hulking Zethar guards. His wrists were bound, his bare feet scraping against the grated flooring until sparks flickered from the friction. Every step left a smear of blood from split soles. The guards didn't care. They yanked him forward with mechanical precision, as if hauling a piece of cargo instead of a man. Pathetic weight, one hissed in his guttural tongue. Heavier dead than alive, the other grunted. They threw him into the prison yard. Kael hit the steel floor on his knees, air knocked from his lungs. He stayed down. Not because he couldn't rise, but because he knew what they expected, and because he needed them to keep believing it. Around him, the yard stirred with cruel laughter. The prison's other inhabitants gathered like vultures, towering over him, scaled Zethar, insected Teshk, tusked Breakhall. All of them veterans of conquest, hardened warriors. And all of them united in their disdain for the human dumped at their feet. A reptilian prisoner sneered, baring rows of jagged teeth. "This is a warrior of Earth. I've seen hatchlings with stronger spines." Kael raised his head just enough for his dark eyes to meet the alien's gaze. He said nothing. He let his lips part in a faint, bloody smile. That smile earned him a kick to the ribs. He folded easily, coughing crimson onto the floor. The laughter swelled. The humiliation was orchestrated, of course. Overseer Vaelthar wanted every prisoner reminded that humans were beneath contempt. That they were not equals, not rivals, only fodder for mockery. Kael gave them what they wanted. For now. The crowd parted with a hiss of hydraulics. From the elevated platform overlooking the yard, Overseer Vaelthar descended. His elongated frame moved with predatory grace, his skin a pale shade of violet, eyes glowing amber like molten glass. He wore Dominion armor polished to a cruel sheen, his rank carved into the plating. He stood over Kael as if appraising livestock. "This one," Vaelthar announced, his voice carrying effortlessly across the yard. "This fragile mammal represents humanity. The same species that dared raise fleets against the Dominion. Look well, prisoners. Look at how quickly they break." The audience jeered. Prisoners spat, some tossed scraps of food or shards of rusted metal. Kael didn't flinch. Vaelthar crouched, claws curling beneath Kael's chin, forcing his head upward. "What are you, little human? A soldier? A survivor? No, just an animal that learned to walk upright." Kael met his gaze. His voice came low, hoarse, but steady. "Animals bite when cornered." The overseer chuckled. "And yet you kneel." He released him with a shove, standing tall again. "Remember this spectacle. This is the fate of every human who resists Dominion law." The crowd howled approval. Vaelthar turned his back and ascended once more to his perch. The guards struck Kael across the shoulders and ordered him to his feet. He obeyed, staggering toward the shadows where the prisoners dispersed. The mockery was over. For now. Later, in the dim recess of the barracks, Kael sat against the wall, feigning exhaustion. Around him, alien prisoners lounged, gambling with scraps of metal, sharpening improvised blades, whispering in tongues he only half understood. Most ignored him, except one. A wiry breakhall with tusks chipped from old fights crouched beside him. His voice was low. "Why let them treat you like carrion, human? You show teeth, they respect. You bow, they eat you alive." Kael kept his eyes closed, head bowed. "Respect doesn't keep you alive in here. Silence does." The breakhall studied him for a long moment, nostrils flaring as if smelling weakness, or something else. Finally, he grunted and moved on. Kael opened his eyes once the alien left. He scanned the room carefully, memorizing every detail. The guards rotated every 6 hours. The vents rattled when the engines shifted to low power. The electronic locks hummed faintly before disengaging. Small things. But small things build maps, and maps built escape. He shifted his gaze to the human prisoners across the barracks. Young soldiers, most barely trained before being captured. Their spirits were brittle, their hope fading. They looked at him with disappointment, sometimes even disgust. To them, he was the weakest link, a reminder of defeat. Good. Let them believe it. Their survival depended on the illusion. The lights dimmed to signal the false night's cycle. Kael lay on the steel slab that served as a bunk, hands folded over his stomach. His ribs throbbed where the kick had landed. He forced his breathing to steady, listening. The prison barge groaned as its engines adjusted course. Somewhere above, Vaelthar's voice echoed through the intercom, issuing orders to guards in his cold, measured cadence. Kael tuned it out, focusing on patterns, footsteps, security drones, the rhythm of the hum. Every detail etched into memory. He closed his eyes, not to sleep, but to think. He replayed the day's events, every insult, every laugh, every strike. Each humiliation was a piece of camouflage. Each bruise bought him time. They saw a broken man. That was the mask. Behind it, Commander Elias Kael remained very much intact, and watching. The next morning, he was hauled out again. The guards forced him into the yard with the same rough handling. The crowd gathered, eager for more sport. One alien prisoner leaned close and hissed, "You'll die soon, human. Best hope it's quick." Kael smiled faintly. "We'll see who dies first." The alien blinked at the confidence in his tone. It was gone an instant later, hidden under another fit of coughing. Above, Overseer Vaelthar watched from his platform, golden eyes narrowed. For the first time, Kael wondered if the Overseer had noticed the mask was just a little too perfect. The prison barge stirred before its false dawn. Lights snapped on in the barracks, flooding every corner in harsh white glare. Guards barked orders, dragging prisoners into lines. Elias Kael rose slowly from his slab, spine bowed as if his body resisted the effort. The act was convincing. Even his fellow humans believed the posture of defeat. Yet behind his lowered eyes Kael was alert. Every guard's step, every prisoner's shuffle was measured against the rhythm of yesterday. He wasn't surviving by chance, he was building a clockwork map of the Dominion's routines. Breakfast was slop ladled into rusting trays. Prisoners gathered in clusters, claiming patches of floor to eat. Kael sat alone. He stirred the paste with his fingers, not tasting it. Across the chamber, 2 guards exchanged weapons, short stun batons that hummed with barely restrained energy. Kael marked the handover. Shift change always meant distracted eyes. A voice broke his concentration. "You stare too much, human. Eyes like that get cut out." The break hall with the broken tusk squatted beside him again, tearing a strip of meat from his ration. His dark gaze flicked over Kael. Kael shrugged. "Better to see than stumble blind." The break hall snorted. "Or better to live quiet and see another cycle. Your choice." He lumbered away. Kael let the words hang. Advice or warning, it didn't matter. Both were true. Later, in the work pits, Kael's chance came. The humans were herded into a chamber where cables and pipes lined the walls. Their task was pointless maintenance, supervised by 2 Zethar guards who mocked them more than they watched. One of the younger soldiers, barely 20, dropped a wrench. The clang echoed. A guard snarled, swinging his baton, striking the boy across the back. The soldier cried out, collapsing. Kael knelt quickly, pretending to help lift the boy, but his hand pressed against the soldier's wrist, firm and deliberate. 3 squeezes. Pause. 2 squeezes. The boy stiffened. His breath itched, but he nodded faintly. He understood. The signal wasn't random, it was code, an old infantry pattern for stand ready. The guards barked at them to keep working. Kael guided the boy upright, whispering just loud enough for him alone. "Breathe. Show no anger. That's how we survive." The soldier swallowed his fury and bent back to his task. Kael's lips curved faintly. Another seed planted. By the next cycle, the seeds began to sprout. Kael noticed humans moving differently, slower when guards were near, faster when backs were turned. He watched rations quietly exchanged between bunks, bruised faces tended without complaint. His signals had spread, whispered from ear to ear, disguised as accident. The Dominion sensed something. Security doubled. Drones hovered longer in the corridors. Even Overseer Vaelthar visited more often, his amber eyes burning with suspicion. On one such visit, he stopped before Kael in the yard. The prisoners fell silent, watching. Vaelthar's voice slithered like oil. "Still alive, little human? You are harder to kill than you look. Yet you remain the weakest in the yard." Kael raised his head slowly. His voice was quiet but steady. "Weakness depends on perspective." The overseer tilted his head, studying him. Then, with sudden violence, he struck Kael across the face. The blow rattled teeth, sent him sprawling. Gasps rippled through the yard. Vaelthar crouched low, his lips close to Kael's ear. "I see the way you watch, human. Eyes like knives. Do not forget, you are prey here. Nothing more." Kael spat blood onto the floor, then let his head hang limp. He did not answer. The overseer straightened, unsatisfied, and strode away. The moment lingered. Prisoners whispered. Some saw Kael as humiliated again, others noticed the smile he hid behind the blood. That night, Kael lay awake on his slab. The barracks was filled with the low rumble of snores and distant clang of machinery. He stared at the ceiling, the bruises on his face throbbing, mind burning. A flash of memory drifted in. Earth's command room, the resistance leaders gathered. His orders had been clear: infiltrate, observe, and when the moment comes, strike. Failure was not an option. If humanity's prisoners were crushed here, the Dominion would cement its image of humans as weak forever. Entire fleets' worth of soldiers would be erased, not just from battlefields, but from memory. Kael clenched his fists. Pain lanced through his knuckles, but he welcomed it. Pain was proof he was still fighting, even while kneeling. 2 days later, the tension snapped. During morning muster, a guard dragged one of the younger humans into the center of the yard. The boy had been caught hoarding food. His punishment was to serve as an example. The Zethar lifted his baton, ready to strike until bones shattered. The boy's eyes widened in terror. Kael stepped forward. A murmur rippled through the prisoners. He never moved before, never interfered. Kael raised his hands, palms open, voice calm. "He's just a child. If you need to break someone, break me." The guard froze, surprised. Then a cruel smile spread across his scaled face. "Gladly." He swung the baton, cracking it against Kael's shoulder. Pain flared, but Kael stayed upright. Another strike. Another. He dropped to one knee but refused to collapse. The yard watched in silence. For the first time, the laughter was gone. When the guard finally shoved him aside, Kael's body sagged, but his eyes burned. He locked gaze with the boy, just long enough to give the faintest nod. "Live. Endure." The boy swallowed hard and returned to line. The signal was clear. Sacrifice meant something different when done by choice. That evening, Overseer Vaelthar summoned Kael to the upper deck. Guards shoved him into the overseer's chamber, a cavernous space filled with Dominion technology, walls pulsing faint blue with alien circuitry. Vaelthar studied him from behind a desk of dark alloy, claws tapping against the surface. "You confuse me, human. You appear broken, yet you endure beatings that would shatter stronger bones. You speak rarely, yet others listen. Why?" Kael wiped blood from his lip and answered simply, "Because you mistake silence for weakness." The overseer's golden eyes narrowed. For a moment, the room vibrated with restrained tension. Then Vaelthar laughed, a harsh, cutting sound. "Bold words. But in this place, silence ends with death. Remember that." He signaled the guards. Kael was dragged out again, tossed back into the barracks. The laughter still echoed in Kael's ears as he hit the floor. But beneath it, he heard something else, the sound of fear. Not his. Vaelthar's. Kael lay awake through the false night, ribs aching, vision blurred. He stared at the barracks ceiling, lips curved faintly despite the pain. The overseer had noticed. Good. That meant the mask was working. That meant the Dominion was starting to doubt the picture they painted of humanity. And doubt, Kael knew, was the first crack in any prison wall. The alarms began before dawn's cycle. A shrill, metallic wail split the barracks, jerking prisoners awake. Red light strobed across steel walls as guards stormed in, weapons charged. Up! One barked. Form lines! Kael rose with the others, face expressionless. He already knew what this was. The Dominion staged public punishments when discipline slipped. Rumor had spread of small acts of defiance, ration theft, sabotage tools, whispered resistance. The overseer had decided it was time to remind everyone who held the chains. The prisoners were herded into the central yard. The cold bite of recycled air scraped their throats. At the center stood a raised platform, surrounded by guards and drones. On it, 5 young humans were forced to kneel, wrists bound. Vaelthar stood above them, tall and radiant in his polished armor. His golden eyes burned brighter than the floodlights. "Behold," he declared, his voice amplified through hidden speakers. "Human weakness laid bare. These vermin thought themselves clever, hoarding food, whispering treason. They will serve as example." A murmur ran through the crowd. Some prisoners looked away, others leaned forward, eager for spectacle. Kael stayed still, gaze locked on the overseer. His heartbeat was steady. He had waited for this moment since the day he was dragged aboard. The first guard lifted a baton over the youngest captive. The boy's eyes darted desperately across the crowd, and found Kael. Kael gave the faintest shake of his head. Not yet. Then he moved. Not a lunge. Not a reckless charge. Just a step forward, deliberate, calm. His voice cut through the yard like steel. "Stop." The guard froze, baton mid-swing. The crowd gasped. Vaelthar's head turned sharply. "What did you say?" Kael straightened. For the first time, he shed the slouch of defeat. His shoulders squared, his gaze sharpened, his voice clear. "I said stop. This is my prison. My rules. And I'm done watching you play warden." Silence crashed over the yard. Prisoners stared in disbelief. Guards raised weapons, but then the lights flickered. The hum of the ship's system shifted, deep and resonant. Kael lifted his wrist. A scarred band of metal embedded in his skin glowed faint blue. Hidden for weeks under grime and blood, it now pulsed with authority codes. With a single gesture, he activated it. The platform restraints snapped open. The kneeling humans stumbled free. Drones in the air stuttered, their lenses flickering, then swiveled to target the alien guards instead. The yard erupted in chaos. "Seize him!" Vaelthar roared, but his voice was drowned by the shriek of systems obeying new commands. Kael's codes ran deep, written into Dominion machinery long before his capture. Guards swung their batons, but humans surged forward, fists and stolen tools in hand. The first guard fell, throat crushed beneath a pry bar. Another was swarmed, dragged down screaming. Kael strode through the storm, every step precise. He caught a fallen baton, its charge sparking in his grip. He tossed it to the boy he'd once protected. "Use it!" The soldier's eyes widened, but he obeyed, driving the weapon into a guard's chest. The smell of burnt flesh filled the air. Vaelthar leapt from the platform, landing with a clang that shook the deck. His claws gleamed, his face twisted in fury. "You dare!" Kael faced him calmly. "I warned you. Animals bite when cornered." The overseer struck first, claws slicing through the air. Kael ducked, baton whipping up to crack against armored ribs. Sparks flew. Vaelthar staggered, then lunged again, faster than any human reflex should counter. But Kael wasn't just reflex, he was discipline, training, and fury honed razor sharp. He pivoted, driving the baton across Vaelthar's jaw. The overseer reeled, golden eyes blazing. "You think you can lead these vermin?" Kael advanced, each strike measured, relentless. "Not led. Free." Vaelthar roared and slashed, catching Kael across the side. Pain tore through his ribs, but Kael didn't falter. He pressed closer, weapon jabbing, forcing the overseer back toward the platform. Around them, battle raged. Humans fought like wolves unchained, overwhelming guards with sheer desperation. Prisoners of other species watched stunned. Some even joined, turning on their Dominion masters. The yard became a war zone of blood and fire. Vaelthar bared his fangs, voice cracking with rage. "You are nothing human! A prisoner in chains!" Kael slammed the baton into the overseer's chest, sending him sprawling onto the platform. He planted a boot against the alien's throat, pressing down hard. His voice carried across the yard. "No. I am the Warden. And this prison belongs to humanity now." The drones hovering above acknowledged the command. Weapons swiveled, targeting the last Dominion guards. Red beams fired. Screams echoed. Vaelthar thrashed, claws scraping at Kael's boot, but his strength was fading. Kael leaned closer, eyes cold. "You should have killed me when I knelt. Now you'll live long enough to watch your empire bleed." He twisted the baton, its charge surging into the overseer's chest. Vaelthar convulsed, then went limp. The yard fell silent. Kael stepped back, chest heaving, baton still sparking in his hand. Around him, humans stood tall, battered but unbroken. The platform, once a stage for humiliation, now held their victory. The boy who'd once knelt for execution looked at Kael with wide, shining eyes. "What now?" Kael scanned the yard, the guards' bodies, the stunned prisoners of other races. He raised his voice so all could hear. "Now we fight with their ship. We turn their prison into our blade. Humanity is not prey. We are the storm they never expected." A cheer rose, raw and fierce. Humans shouted, voices echoing through steel walls. Some of the alien prisoners joined, fists raised, not out of loyalty, but out of awe. Kael looked to the control spire above the yard. His codes had already begun rewriting its systems. Doors unlocked. Alarms silenced. The Corthuan was shifting from Dominion control to his own. For the first time since capture, the hum of the engines no longer sounded like chains. They sounded like wings. As the humans armed themselves with captured weapons, Kael stood over the fallen overseer. He thought of Earth, of the resistance waiting for a sign that hope remained. He tightened his grip on the baton. Hope wasn't enough. Humanity needed fire. And now, thanks to their arrogance, he had it.